I think anyone who is even remotely interested in video will really find this drone particularly interesting. A drone that films you anywhere, effortlessly framing shots and following you while avoiding obstacles. No need for another person to control it, which offers different control modes and on top of that maintains perfectly usable quality. We need to talk about the DJI Avata 360. Let's go! Quick note, I'm Hugo, a video director focused on outdoor content and a surfer, in case you don't know me well. And I'm the one on NowTech who handles outdoor product presentations like drones, for example. We call these NowTech Action, and honestly, I'm a big fan of DJI products. I already use their Magic 4 Pro every day for my surf shots and documentaries. I also film all my surf sessions with their Osmo Action, which is incredibly powerful. And I even use their microphone to record my voice. DJI has always made products that are very well finished, durable and high quality. That's also why so many people use them. When I saw they were releasing their first 360 drone, it immediately caught my attention. So, in reality, how good is this drone really? And who is it for? And what are the creative possibilities? And one last thing, this video is sponsored by DJI, but that doesn't stop me from giving my honest opinion, whether it's the positive points or the things I liked a bit less. Let's get started. And on NowTech, I'm the one who takes care of all the outdoor gadgets, like drones for example. So I'm really happy to see you again for a new video. Before testing the drone in practice, let's talk about the specs because that's interesting. So this is DJI's very first 360 drone, and for a first attempt, they've done a great job. So we have two cameras, one on top of the other, filming in all directions. That means it's during editing that we'll decide which angle to choose, or at least the framing. And that's the special thing about 360 drones, you don't need to frame the shot. So, there are two cameras, one on top of the other, with an equivalent 1-inch sensor which is a first, and it offers 8K at 60 frames per second. So why 8K? Because when you overlay two 4K images to create a kind of 360 sphere, it naturally results in 8K. In reality, you'll be able to export in 2K or even 4K if you keep it fairly wide and still get usable results. But as for the image quality, we'll talk more about that later. The drone creates an 8K spherical image at 60 frames per second, which is impressive. Also, an interesting feature thanks to the new DJI transmission system is that there's a theoretical range of 20 kilometers, which is huge. So, I haven't tested it up to 20 kilometers because that seems really far to me. But in any case, I didn't have any issues with interference or signal transmission, so it seems pretty solid. Like the DJI Avata, guards surround the propellers, which boosts pilot confidence since you're less worried about crashing. I did crash it once, but the drone wasn't damaged, which is great. There are also plenty of small sensors around the drone, which means that for tracking people, especially with active track, it can really avoid obstacles well, but I also tested that. And the interesting feature of this drone, for me, there are two. First, you can fly it with the DJI goggles, in immersion, also with head tracking and in FPV mode. So that's already cool. But you can also fly it with the classic RC2 remote controller, and that's great because I'm more traditional in the way I fly. And I feel much more precise with my shots when I use this remote controller. So that's cool. But also a feature that I love is that you can use the drone in single lens mode. Basically by default, it's in 360 mode, so it films all around. But in single lens mode, here, you'll see a little rotation. So the camera will face forward like this. And it will be like having a normal drone. So for the price of one drone, technically you get two. And that's really clever from DJI. So those are the specs. Now, in terms of image quality, in terms of piloting, and even in post-production, how is it? Well, we're going to see that right now because I put this drone to the test. For testing this drone, I chose a pretty nice place, which is the forest here in the Landis. Each tree is kind of a little obstacle. It's a good way to see what it's capable of, the shots it allows you to take, and above all, whether you can trust it. That's what's important. So I had a lot of things to test with this drone, and I started by filming in 360 with the standard remote control, to see how the drone behaved in complicated environments and to test its obstacle avoidance. I just took it on a first flight with the regular remote control, and I set it to obstacle avoidance using braking instead of bypassing. And honestly, I'm impressed because I really went full speed, right there, into the trees. I had time to control my line and go where I wanted without worrying about hitting a tree. Sometimes I got pretty close because I pushed it. But basically you really have confidence in your trajectory because you can really feel it braking. I really trust it here in the forest, whereas with a more traditional drone, I'd feel a bit less comfortable, so that's already pretty good. And to give you an idea, this is the raw footage I shot with the drone, and as you can see, you can really tell that the drone slows down hard from time to time to avoid obstacles. I'm always adjusting my path until I get between the trees. But now, with the 360 file, this same shot can be transformed into this render to get this effect done. It's an image that at first you'd think, yeah, it's not great, but in post-production you can really turn it into something very beautiful. I've shot some 360 shots and used single lens mode, so we'll see in post-production. The single lens mode basically makes the camera turn so that it only records with one of the two camera lenses. It's to make it look like you have a regular drone. So, with the remote control, I felt like it was moving quite a bit while I was filming. I'll see later if we can add some stabilization. I think we can, and we'll see later how the footage turns out. But I think it's really great that with just one drone, a single 360 drone, you can convert it into a regular drone. That's honestly an amazing feature. The thing is, this drone is actually two drones in one, and that's awesome. So at this point, in terms of piloting, the drone really surprised me. But it was time to take things to the next level. That means trusting it 100%. Now, I'm going to try something. I'm going to send the drone, and I'm going to ask it to follow my girlfriend, Anastasia, who's going to try to ride over there in the forest, and I'm going to let the drone follow her. I'll still keep an eye on the controller just in case, to see if it works well. Here we go. The drone is ready. Anastasia, are you ready? You can do this. Let's go. Come on, let's take off. Take off. So I activated the active track feature, which lets you select a subject and have the drone follow it automatically. There are several modes. Of course, I chose the electric bike mode, and I let the drone do everything, 100%. This is really crazy because Anastasia just left on her bike. I'm hardly moving the controller and the drone is tracking her perfectly. See? It's amazing. In the forest, on the path, I'm not touching anything. Now she's going really far. She's gone so far I can't see her anymore. I hope she returns before the signal drops, but it's holding up well. Now I think it will follow her from behind. Well, Anastasia is back. Actually, I didn't expect her to go that far. Here, we're in the forest. So, there's a little spot. There are quite a few trees, but they're relatively spaced out. And when you go a bit further over there, it's really just a tiny path. Actually, we're surrounded by vegetation. There are leaves everywhere. There are branches sticking out from everywhere. Honestly, it's almost impossible to get through. Still, the drone managed to follow her. It ended up hitting a small leaf. And even then, it stabilized itself. It didn't crash. So then, I took control again and brought it back. But it's impressive how well the drone can follow you in pretty extreme conditions. Now, we're going to test another control mode. That's something I also really like about this drone. You can control it with the regular remote, and you can also control it with this. That means the motion controller and the headset you put on your head, the DJI goggles. So we have an FPV mode, but we also have a mode where you're immersed with head tracking in the air, which really makes it feel like you're flying. And it's really to DJI's credit to be able to offer two types of control. Well, let's try it out then. Let's go. So when you put this on your head, you get the drone's view. You see what the drone's camera sees. Sorry. And actually this, the motion controller, the little controller I have in my hand, lets you add a small cursor that points where you want to go. So I think you can see that on the screen now. I'm going to make it take off. Press here once, then again. And you just have to press the trigger for the drone to accelerate toward where you're pointing. So it's really easy to use. Although, to be precise with its movements, you still need a little time to get used to it. And as I mentioned, you can activate head tracking. That way, you really feel like you're in the air. You can look in all directions. And the drone will then show what's below, above, to the left, and to the right. It's a bit like actually flying. So, beyond the final shot you get, it's also a flying experience that you have while piloting. Well, it works really well. I made some shots with it and you can see them on the screen. It's interesting because it gives you an immersive experience. you feel like you're in the air. When you look up or down, the drone does the same. Personally, in terms of control, I still feel more comfortable when there's no head tracking, because I can be more precise with my shots. But it's good that it's there, that it can offer an interesting experience. And I think it's cool that DJI can offer this kind of experience on this drone, because it's a 360 drone. So we might as well take advantage of the full view the drone can give us to have this great feeling of flying. And a little additional note, as you can see here in the image, I found it a bit easier with the immersive view to skim over things like the tops of trees. I'm much closer than when I'm using the remote control. That's a positive, as you can capture impressive shots like this. Now, in post-production, how does this Avata 360 work? And also, we'll talk about the image quality. First, to work with the 360 videos made by this drone, you need software called DJI Studio. It's the software right here behind me, so it's relatively simple. You import these files, you put them on a timeline that you create, and then you get a shot where you can choose whether you're in free view or camera view. I choose free view because I can just move around a little bit in the space. And here, we have that famous 360-degree control to get a view all around. You can do effects, you can look up, down, left, right. And that's nice. Honestly, the software is very easy to use. However, I'm still going to give you a couple of tips to get some nice images. First, what I like to do is remove the fisheye effect from the video. I don't really like the fisheye effect, so I want everything to be nice and linear. And for that, you can set this parameter that you see on the screen to 0 to remove the distortion. And secondly, I like to create smooth camera movements using keyframes. So, let's say I'd like the shot to look up first and then go down, and for it to be really smooth. Well, for that, you can use keyframes directly in the DJI software. As you can see, I add a keyframe showing the drone is looking here and slightly ahead. Then, I move forward in the clip and tilt the view down so the drone looks here. And now, you can see that a movement has been created from here to there. What I do is smooth out the speed curve so it's not too abrupt, robotic or linear. And finally, the last adjustment I make to get optimal quality is to add a little full motion effect that's directly included in the software. So that's also really nice to have added because it gives us this sense of speed, a bit of a cinematic feel that I personally like to have in my shots, and in the end, we get this kind of result. So, to be honest, filming in 360 is actually pretty specific because the first time you film with your drone, you feel a bit lost. You don't really know where to frame since it's capturing everything everywhere. So you really need to do a few flights just to get the hang of it and understand how it works. With some practice, you'll quickly learn which shots give certain results and how orientation affects the outcome. I really like going to places that are wide open with a lot of things around me, especially in the forest, because you really get that 360-degree immersive feeling. I really like that. For example, flying too high up in the sky with a 360 camera, I don't really see much point in it because there's not really any movement. Actually, the flight looks almost static. That's not as good. But flying close to objects, especially close to trees, you get that sense of speed and you can change the angles. And that's an effect I really like. Anyway, once you have your shot, you just need to export it by clicking at the top right. And then you can import it into, for example, Final Cut Pro, add your color grading, your music, and so on. Now, in terms of image quality, how does it look? Well, I'm pleasantly surprised. It's true that the quality isn't exceptional, but for me, it's still usable. In any case, it's the best quality I've found on a 360 drone. The 360 image, as I said at the beginning, is in 8K, but in reality, when you crop into a part of the image, you actually get more like 4K or even 2K. It can go down to usable 1080, but in any case, for me, it seems enough since I really use the drone in large spaces with a very wide angle. So actually, when you're really zoomed out, it's true that you don't notice the tiny details when you zoom in a lot. So for me, it's fine. Afterward, those who are most meticulous and zoom in on a specific spot will notice that excessive zooming also reduces quality. But for me, it's still fine, at least for vacation videos, for an everyday drone, and even for some semi-pro use, let's say. It does the job more than enough. For photos as well, it's pretty nice. You can take aerial photos and crop them later to get the exact shot you want. It works perfectly. Then, when we talk about single lens mode, meaning when I switch to normal drone mode, the footage is fine. But in that case, we're no longer in 8K, we're in 4K at 60 frames per second. It's true that the quality is a little bit lower in those conditions, but again, it's still usable. However, the downside I found is that, of course, there's no real stabilization anymore. Since, by definition, on the drone, there's no gimbal. So the drone, actually, the camera is just like that. Any little gust of wind, you'll see it. Especially on the day I was filming, there was a lot of wind. So you can see it shakes a bit. If the area is clear enough and there's not too much wind, it'll be just fine. But it's true that I would have liked to have a rocksteady option at that moment to stabilize the shot. I don't know if that's possible in the future. I imagine an update could make it happen, but I had to mention it. Also, a cool thing you can do is film in D-Log-M. D-Log-M is a slightly compressed log format from DJI. It lets you add your own color grading afterward. So it's really great to have that option. I use it all the time because obviously I get more dynamic range in my image to choose the contrast and colors I want. So I always film in D-Log-M. For me, it's essential. Now, about the things I particularly like with this drone. First, it's the creative possibilities, because by definition, a 360 drone allows for shots that aren't possible with regular cameras. Personally, I especially love the effect in the forest where the drone looks up a bit and then comes back down. There's really an aspect where you feel like you're inside the image, and I love that. You can also do the little planet effect, which is also nice from time to time to tell a story or just to create a fun effect. In terms of positive points, I also found that the active track, which is the drone's person tracking feature, is excellent. It's really efficient. So you shouldn't push it too far, like for example in a forest with branches sticking out everywhere, because after all, it's still a drone. It's not magic either. But in an environment with a few obstacles, the drone will detect them perfectly. It will go around them perfectly. And that's really convenient. You can use it all by yourself. That's really cool. I'm thinking of all the solo creators who try to film themselves and always struggle, for example, to film themselves when they're on a scooter or when they're in a car or whatever. Well, I'm not saying you should do it, but in any case, it's possible and it works really, really well. Personally, in the forest with Anastasia, it worked perfectly. Another thing I really like about the drone is the fact that you can replace the lenses, because often you do end up with little scratches on them. Why? Because they're fisheye lenses, so they stick out a bit from the base. Not sure if you can see it clearly here. So these are lenses that are very easy to scratch. And then for image quality, having a scratch right in the middle isn't exactly ideal. I also really like the variety of ways you can control the drone. You can have the immersive experience if you really want to enjoy your flight, see a bit of the air around you, and control it with your hand, because that's also very, very easy. You can also fly it traditionally with a remote, which is great for having multiple options. It's really a drone to have in lots of little situations, which can capture shots you might not have thought of, and it doesn't require anyone except yourself to film. Now, regarding the things I like a bit less, that could be improved, well, it's always the image quality. Even though the quality is perfectly usable, and on top of that, we have the option to use D-Log-M, which is the more compressed log format from DJI. I hope future generations have even better quality, so we won't hesitate to zoom in during post-production. That would be cool. Another thing I would have liked is to have some kind of rock steady, especially for the single lens mode, because it's true that in single lens, since there's no gimbal holding the camera, the image shakes a little bit. And I don't know if it would have been possible to really have much better image stabilization. When there's not too much wind, it's usable. But as soon as there are really strong gusts, you can see the image shakes a little bit. So I hope that next time, or maybe with a software update, it could be improved. And finally, and for me this is the most annoying thing about the drone, it makes a lot of noise. Well, I haven't had any problems anywhere I've flown it. No one has said anything to me, but it's true that I like to be a bit discreet when I fly the drone, and I don't know if I would fly it like that on the beach in front of a lot of people if it's making that much noise, because it could bother some people to have such a racket going on. Other than that, I haven't had any issues at all, but it's something to keep in mind, it is still a bit noisy. In my opinion, DJI through the Avata 360 have accomplished something quite complex. You could say they've taken the complexity of creative flying and put it into software, because that's where you'll really have the flexibility to get the shot you want. And the 1-inch equivalent sensor for 360 capture gives you a quality that's perfectly usable for everyday videos, even for vacations, and even a bit for professional use. You can definitely get creative shots, and I think that's cool. Also, the fact that there are all these sensors and propeller guards gives you real confidence when flying. So you can really allow yourself to do things you might not have done with a more traditional drone. So it's really a little creative drone to have around that lets you get lots of shots that are quite different from what we're used to seeing. And that's really cool. As a solo creator, the main issue is always the same. You can't be everywhere at once. If you're piloting, you might miss the framing, and if you're framing, the movement may not be smooth. When you return to editing, you realize the shot you wanted is missing. The Avata 360 solves this problem. You take off, you fly along your route, and the drone records all around itself continuously. And during editing, you can choose the framing from a single file. That's the magic of 360 drones. Combined with excellent action tracking, it's really an outstanding drone, especially effective for solo creators. We're wrapping up this video. I hope you enjoyed this quick review of the DJI Avata 360. I'm still passionate about making videos like this for you, especially outdoors. If you want to see me again on the channel, let me know in the comments. I'd love to read your messages. Remember to subscribe and hit the bell for updates. Thanks for watching. Thank you, DJI. See you next time. Bye.